Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Scott Lee. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes and give folks a little bit of extra time to come in. It's right at 10 o'clock right now. We'll start at about 10:01. Thanks. Okay, good morning. Thanks again, everyone who was able to jump in and join us today. My name is Scott Lee. I'm the Vice President of our Defense and Intelligence business here at Terrago. I'm joined on the phone by a couple of people that I'd like to thank as well. Madison, who is out on the West Coast in California, so she was able to get up at quite early this morning and help us get this presentation and demonstration running. Also in Atlanta, Georgia is John Mueller, who is our senior project manager, one of our senior project managers here at Terrago, and all around GeoPDF and GIS guy. So thanks, John, for joining us today. Logistically, you'll see on your screen, we have a couple of options for Q&A and chat. Everyone is muted for the presentation and demonstration. So if you could use that Q&A option there to type your questions, we'll try to get to those. We will also be recording the session today for later viewing. Some of our defense and intelligence customers are not able to necessarily view the webcast through Zoom. So we'll make a recording available to everyone today. Thanks for joining. We kind of hitched our wagon to the March Madness theme here. So thanks for coming. This shouldn't run longer than 45 minutes or so, depending on any questions and answers. I have a couple of slides here. I'm just going to go ahead and pop those up just to give us a good idea of where we're going with the discussion. Today, we're going to be talking and demonstrating ArcGIS, our GeoPDF Publisher for ArcGIS Pro, and our other product. Many people have not made the transition yet to ArcGIS Pro, but that is pending. As we understand, Esri is going to continue to support the desktop product as well for a number of years still, but a lot of my customers or our customers are still using desktop, and some have started to make the transition to Pro. So it is an inevitability. So we've already started. Obviously, we worked really hard the past year and a half, 2 years to get ready for this release, and have been able to integrate very tightly with Esri and the ArcGIS Pro platform. And John's going to show you some of that today, as well as the desktop product. So the GeoPDF Publisher for ArcGIS Pro is now available. We are at version 2.1, which is compatible. The initial release was in October. It is compatible with ArcGIS Pro 2.7. There's a lot of work that went into this because it was almost a complete new rewrite of the GeoPDF publishing capability. But it is a tight integration. We have been able to port many of the tools, the advanced layering capability, embedding Geopackage, into the GeoPDF, the end GeoPDF product. And John's going to go through some of those things with you. There are a lot of similarities between the publisher for ArcGIS Pro and the ArcGIS desktop. So he's going to go through the ArcGIS Pro environment first, and then he'll close up with the ArcGIS desktop, GeoPDF Publisher for ArcGIS desktop tool. There's a lot of technology that was integrated in here. There's a newer technology called DOML, where we actually embed a lot of the panes inside of the Pro environment. So I think you'll all appreciate that, that capability. Again, we are supporting ArcGIS 2.7, ArcGIS Pro 2.7, and the desktop is 10.8. We are at version 2.1. As I said earlier, our first release was in October, and we've already managed to make it to a 2.1 release to support different types of exports. There is advanced layering was integrated inside of that. Some of our federal customers really required that ability to create a more intuitive environment for the end user. Again, all of these GeoPDFs will work with the GeoPDF, the free GeoPDF Toolbar, and and support for Geopackage and pop-ups and things like that inside of the ArcGIS Pro environment. With that, I didn't want to put a whole lot of slides in front of you today. I wanted to just pass it over to John and give him the opportunity to go ahead and launch up ArcGIS Pro and do that demonstration and then to the desktop environment. So John, I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to you.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And all right, can you guys see my screen?
Yep, we've got you, John. Thanks.
Excellent. So in ArcGIS Pro, I've went ahead and imported my my map template into it from my desktop environment, and you're going to start seeing. I don't know how familiar you guys are with Arc Pro, but obviously there's a lot of similarities between it and the desktop version of this. If you look at, if you go out to where it says project here, and if you scroll down, one of the first things we're going to want to do is just make sure you can kind of take a look and see what version of the publisher for ArcGIS Pro you're actually utilizing. So if you go to the add-in manager, you can see that my add-ins shows the GeoPDF Publisher for ArcGIS Pro item right here. It gives you the date in which it was installed, the version number, and a location. So really the version of the software is something that we're going to want, if you are experiencing some issues, that's something you're going to want to share with, obviously, with our support folks. One of the other things that you can do is if you go up to, no, not options. If you go to where it says licensing, you can also come down to where it says external extensions, and you see where it says the item for GeoPDF Publisher for ArcGIS Pro, it's enabled. So if for some reason, when you are in your Pro experience and you're not seeing this Terago, or maybe you're seeing it, but nothing's enabled in here. If you go over to where it says projects, go to licensing, come down where it says external extensions and enable it. Then when you come back into your project itself, you'll start seeing these buttons start to light up. So with that, I'm just going to go from left to right here. So there's an about menu. And again, you can utilize the information that was in the, whoops, my mouse is going a little bit crazy. You can utilize the information that was in the, in this project tab, or if you hit the about, additional information will come up that is relevant to your version of Terago software that's installed. So you got the version number of publisher for ArcGIS Pro. It also provides you like a website and some phone numbers and additional information, as well as at this very last line, it also talks a little bit about I've got a standalone license was found. So Again, this is more information really just for troubleshooting than it is for anything else. Next one over is a help menu, and this is going to basically shoot you out to a website, a support website, where it talks about and it gives you access to all the different things about Pro and some of the requirements. So again, so there's an area where you can go and activate the license. And like I said, there's a search menu here. So if you are running into issues, try to use that help, or just give us a phone call and we can walk through some things with you. There is a preference dialog. So the preferences dialog, again, my mouse is not cooperating. Jeez. This preferences dialog is just a very simple settings in here that basically apply to any new map that I would create. So if I'm building something from scratch, these are the settings that are applied to it. So if I want to, by default, reset this to the image resolution to 150 DPI, or if I want to go up, let's say to 600. As far as the vector options, compressing and enabling the vector graphics and enabling the document fonts is always a good idea. And we'll walk into that. We'll get into that in just a little bit. So I hit OK there. And then, so there's those three kind of additional buttons there on my left. If I'm go to the next one where it says image option, that's talking about the export that I'm about to perform. So I've got an ArcGIS online layer called World Imagery, and it's going to apply a 300 DPI to it. Again, I'm going to go ahead and compress the vector graphics to minimize the size of the GeoPDF that's going to be exported. I'm going to embed the document fonts. And the reason why this is important is not everyone obviously has access to Esri software, nor do they have it installed. So if you're using symbology for, let's say, point features, or let's say there's maybe some specialized text or something else that you're utilizing, if you don't embed the fonts, it's going to start, it's going to use the wingdings, or it's going to use some other odd font to take its, to replace it. If it's, let's say you're using just some kind of a simple ArcGIS or Esri font. So make sure you embed your fonts. That's kind of an important thing. The next item in the Terrago toolbar, we have the ability to prepend. So if we want to add a document to as the first page of your PDF, and then we can also append, which would be adding PDF pages to the second, third, fourth, fifth. So in this instance, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to browse to a again with the mouse. We're going to go ahead and browse to a PDF that I've got that I know I want to attach to this export, and it's going to give me some additional information about the Ronald Reagan Airport here. And again, I can also say, make this compatible with, and it gives a couple of different versions of our toolbar. By default, I would say the OGC preferred is something I would just set to and just be done. A few other things, and this is kind of where Terrago allows you to kind of customize your user experience, is this layers, attributes, and pop-ups. So on the layers tab, you're going to see this is going to be quite a bit different than our earlier versions of Publisher for ArcGIS Pro. We've kind of cleaned this up a little bit to where I can actually come over here and I can drag, let's say some additional information as far as marginalia. So if I want to have the scale text, I can actually drop it in here. I can right mouse click on it, and I can continue to do, just like on our desktop and earlier versions of the software, I can do some things as far as turning the visibility of this layer that I've added off by default. I can remove the layer, obviously, or I can also come in here and rename. So I can just say, I can rename this this item here to, instead of water, I can call it a hydro, let's say. So the big thing would be, obviously, is coming in here and let's say I want to turn off the world imagery because it takes a while for it to draw. So I can just, initially the visibility is set to off, and I can hit OK here. A couple of other things that I can do is I can create a layered GeoPDF, or I can turn this option off. And so that basically anything that is displayed in ArcGIS is automatically displayed in the GeoPDF, and I don't have any kind of layer control. So that's what that option does. If I have labels, I can tell it to layer the feature and labels independently. So I can either turn that on to where if I've got a label that's related to, let's say, bridges, I can either control that by layers, or I can just say, hey, whenever the bridges are off, so is the label. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. And then the other thing I can do is say, hey, this automatic layer choice option here, basically what that's going to do is anything that I have in my map document is going to show up in my GeoPDF layers. So I usually like to have that turned off by default and basically create my own experience, but that is going to be completely up to the publisher. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save here, and I can close the dialog. My next, there we go. I can tuck him on the side. The next one I can do is our dialog for the attributes. So this is where, very similar to desktop again, I have the option to add a thing called a Geo Package to the exported GeoPDF. So I can either set this to either none or Geopackage or on or off. So if I have a Geopackage, if I come down to my layers, I've got bridges, or not bridges, I've got buildings selected here. So, and again, I can turn on a bunch of different things here, or I can just be very specific as far as what information I'm going to share in that Geopackage. And just remember, when it comes to the Geopackage, you're actually building a clipped subset of your data, and it's going to be included as an attachment to the GeoPDF. So I can take that Geopackage with my subset of data, and I can share that with, let's say, someone who doesn't have the data set, maybe in Esri, and so they can then open up the PDF, get the Geopackage, and then they can add, let's say, those buildings to their GIS experience. So just a heads up on that. One of the things it's kind of important when you're talking about adding attributes, adding data to a GeoPDF, and as far as a Geopackage, is you want to come in here and you want to look at, I'm trying to think of this, I'm looking at the right place here. Oh, no. You want to look at the attribute table, let's say for the bridges. And you can see here that I've got, let's say 12 or 15 different attributes. Well, actually quite a bit more for the bridges. Just to make sure that you're aware that you need to come in here and hide those fields that you don't want to share, let's say, with another organization. So if I've got some sensitive data in here that I don't want to share, let's say addresses or account numbers, or even just irrelevant field names like the object data, let's say, shape, and in the end of this thing, it always adds something called geometry. I can remove those fields to where I'm minimizing the size of the Geo package so that my GeoPDF is as small as I can make it. The other big piece here is a thing called pop-ups. Esri has where are they? There we go. Esri has provided us some functionality in ArcGIS Pro, much like a hyperlink to data, but this is relevant to, let's say, polygons or particular layers. So if I've configured a pop-up, let's say for a specific layer, and in this case, I've built one for bridges, or if I built something for airports, I can come in here and basically for the airports, I can add pictures or different fields. And what it'll do is the pop-up that's going to be included with the GeoPDF will be additional pages that almost look like an HTML type of format so that gives the end user that same type of field that a pop-up would give you in the Esri environment, but obviously we're saving it as additional pages. So with the layers that I've set, with the attributes that I've wanted to include into my Geo package, and with my pop-up values configured, I've also added a couple of source, additional non-geospatial PDF source to include in my PDF. So I'm going to go ahead and hit export here. It's going to ask me where I want to save this document. I'm just going to put it on my desktop, and I've already got one out there, and I'm just going to have it replaced. So the export itself takes a little bit of time to do, but obviously it goes by fairly quick. One of the things that we're going to be looking to do for future releases, obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there that have questions about utilizing data-driven pages. And so that's one of the things, obviously, that's going to be on our roadmap to extend into this publisher for ArcGIS Pro. So hopefully that'll be available in future releases soon. And then I can open up the GeoPDF export document itself. And here is the PDF that I exported. So if I come up to, obviously, the layers, you can see that here are all the layers that I had in the MXD. And remember that I renamed that water layer to hydro. So there that guy is. And so there's all my layers that I've added. As far as the attachments, there's my Geo package. If you've got a little SQL viewer, you can actually go into the Geo package itself and actually look at the content. So there's my buildings table. And if I go browse data, there's all that information. And it's a geospatial data. So like I said, I can share that with individual users. You're going to notice that since I appended content to the PDF itself, on my second page is the go-to information from Wikipedia. That's all my good stuff about the content that I've got there. And then and remember that I also used a thing called a pop-up. So pop-up is a lot like a hyperlink. If I close that right there, and if I click on that area, so there's my pop-up related to my airport. So I've actually got two pop-ups in here. One is, let's say, the ground features for the airport, and the other is the actual runway. And it provides, like I said, this is a very customizable additional information here. So I just went ahead and grabbed all the fields that were part of my airport feature, and I added a picture down here below. But this is something that you can obviously use, for content that you want to share with your individual intended users. Scott, I don't know if this would be a good time to bump it back to you and talk about the toolbar, or if you'd like me to jump into the desktop portion of this and just kind of show the similarities.
Let's go ahead and just jump into the desktop environment if you can, and then I'll take just a couple of minutes. And for those who are not familiar with the GeoPDF toolbar,
Okay.
I'll go through that just quickly after you finish here.
Very good. Okay, so now I've opened up, so I showed the Arc Pro, and that's kind of the future of Esri. The desktop application is something I'm assuming that they're going to be continuing to support for several years, but obviously it's eventually going to be phased out. I've used the desktop portion of this for more years than I'd like to admit right now, but so I'm obviously a little weary of just jumping over to the Pro, but you know, I do see a lot of good things in Arc Pro. And I am looking forward to eventually moving toward it once I become a little more familiar and with some of its web content that I can utilize. But on the desktop side of things, a lot of similarities between the Arc Pro and the desktop. I've got obviously the help, the about, the preferences that we talked about before. I've got this export configuration, so it walks through a lot of the little areas that we talked about as far as the image resolution. Some of the things that I can also do with imagery in the desktop side of things is I can set the color mode, whether I want it to be color or grayscale. I can also do some things with compression as far as JPEG quality, and I can also utilize a thing for image pyramids. So a lot of this functionality that we've got in desktop, obviously we're looking toward porting over to the Arc Pro, Arc Pro toolbars. So this is just something hopefully we'll start seeing as that product matures. There's some other things I can do with vectors. So you saw the compressed vector graphics. You saw the embed document fonts. Some of the other things that we can do with the vectors is we can convert the complex symbols to polygons, which it's a good thing as far as it really, like I said, it depends upon the complexity of your symbology, but this will help those really complex symbols to draw a little bit faster and maybe round those edges a bit more on the resolution. And that's kind of where the resolution comes into play as well. I can set a DPI on that. I can use color space as far as RGB, or I can really do some crazy stuff with some colors when I throw an extra value in there with CMYK. The picture symbols, again, this is really related to complex symbology. So typically I just default this to rasterize the layer with bitmap markers and fills. And that usually takes care of about 99% of my complex symbols. I can do some things, and you've already seen this, so I can optimize the GeoPDF file size in here, but you've also saw the compatibility with our toolbars, the prepend and append options that we walk through in the Pro side of things. So a lot of the export configuration settings are already in there, but obviously we're going to be looking forward to getting a few other options in the Pro in future releases. Layer controls, I think this is pretty much everything that was in layer control in the desktop, I think has been ported over to Arc Pro as far as create the layered GeoPDF, layer the features and labels independently. The maintain visual, the scale references, obviously we're going to want to bring that over eventually, but being able to, right mouse click on a layer that I want to show up in a GeoPDF and customizing the user experience is something that is obviously there in Pro. If I move to attributes, there is an extra option on the desktop side of things to utilize a thing called object data. And object data was kind of the Adobe's version of embedding the attributes into the PDF. We've since moved toward a thing called the Geo Package, which we talked a little bit about, and I'm sure Scott will bring up during the toolbar demonstration. But the Geo Package is just a we directly on the Adobe Reader and Acrobat side of things, our toolbar interacts with both. But obviously the Geo Package gives the publisher and the end user a little bit more flexibility as far as utilizing those attributes and possibly features that could be pushed across other GIS applications. Some of the other things is hyperlinks. So the hyperlinks are something that is utilized. I think this hyperlink functionality in desktop is now really being ported over to what we saw as far as a thing called pop-ups. So that's where that integration or those tools are kind of heading. And then on the desktop side of things, we have another tab called WGS84, which is really, we've built this for one particular user. So I'm really not going to cover it here. This is more about, coordinate shifts based upon very specific user coordinate systems. Like I said, this is something that is kind of more for a very high level user. And really, if you've got any questions, we can obviously support you with this tab. But for I'd say 99.9% of our users, this tab is never going to be used. So anyway, that's the desktop side of things. And again, I can export the GeoPDF. Now, a few other things that our toolbar in desktop allows us to do is I can actually use a GeoPDF that I've built. I can actually use it as a reference, so I can actually bring it in as a layer. So if I've got, let's say, content and I've got a GeoPDF that for some reason I don't have the original sources for, I can actually bring that in and utilize it much like a raster as additional content. Some of the other things, if for some reason in that GeoPDF I had Geomarks, I can use this other toolbar item called the Annotation Inspector. I'm not sure who comes up with these names, but it was a pretty cool one. So I can use this tool then to actually look at the Geomark that may have been embedded into the GeoPDF that I brought in as a layer. So it'd be very similar to using the Identify tool in ArcGIS. That's kind of the intent for that tool. I can also import Geomarks. So Scott's going to run through the GeoPDF toolbar. I'm sure he's going to show the creation of Geomarks inside of that. And what this button is going to allow you to do is actually bring that Geomark in as a couple of different formats. So I can either select a file database, which would be that Geopackage, or I can bring it in as a DBase, which would be more of a shape file. And then I can also export Geomarks. So if I selected a bunch of bridges or features in here, I can actually come in here and export those layers now as a shape or a KML or a couple of other things. So other different types of formats. So that capability is available in desktop. Like I said, a lot of this other additional functionality that you may not see in ArcGIS Pro currently is something that we're working to move over. So with the expectation that eventually desktop will be phased out and ArcGIS Pro is going to be kind of the next phase of this functionality. So with that, I'm going to pass this back over to Scott. And Scott, obviously, if there's some questions, I'm more than happy to answer anything that possibly might be in the chat, or if there's some other questions we can cover.
Absolutely, absolutely. I haven't seen any questions really arise yet, John. So I'll just go ahead and so those are the simple ways to go ahead and actually create your GeoPDF product and optimize it for your user community. Again, most of these people and the people that we're really serving, Terrago isn't necessarily a GIS company, but I like to say that we focus more on data sharing and collaboration and being able for that non-traditional user of a cartographic product or intelligence related product or imagery, whatever the case may be, whatever you're trying to get out to the field so that they can actually do something with that data. And I just wanted to go through this real quick. So I'm in the Adobe Reader tool right now. We deliver the GeoPDF Toolbar to it's authorized for installation on about 3 million workstations in the US federal government. So they actually asked to be able to deploy that across multiple enterprises in both the defense and the intelligence community. I know that a lot of the people on the phone, on the call here are not necessarily in the federal government or doing work for them, but anyone can download this GeoPDF toolbar for free from our website. So if you go to terragotech.com and under the products tab, I'll just make sure you can all see this here. Sorry, I'm actually connected to the VPN right now, so I can't access the website. Let me disconnect here and try again. So on the Terrago website, there is a products option. And if you hit the pull down there, we have a couple of different business units that we manage here. On the GeoPDF side, there is the GeoPDF Toolbar. And so anyone in your organization can go through and actually download this GeoPDF Toolbar for free. Doesn't cost anything. I think we just ask for your name and email address so we can make sure you're informed when there are actually new updates available. Underneath that same products tab, if you wanted to, many of you already received the link for our publisher product, which we're discussing today. You can download an evaluation version. The effort that we have ongoing right now is, instead of just having a trial version that has watermarks on it, for this March Madness effort, you actually have a fully functioning version of the publisher suite. So you can actually create fully functional GeoPDF products out of ArcGIS or ArcGIS Pro. And there are no watermarks. So it's something that we haven't really done before, but we thought it would be a good effort for the beginning of 2021 and the newer products to go ahead and give that capability to you until March the 31st. So please go through and create all the products that you want, but highly recommend whenever you send those across that you make this toolbar, you send someone a link to the toolbar so that they can interact with the product to its fullest capability. When you install the GeoPDF toolbar, you'll be able to, on the right-hand side, there are options is where your GeoPDF toolbar will become available. You'll need to probably go to more tools first, and then you'll see the GeoPDF toolbar available here at the bottom of the options list. So you just select on that open for the GeoPDF toolbar and the Geomark toolbar. So let me get back here. And this is, John sent me a sample of his export yesterday. And I want to show you a couple of things that you can do to interact with the product itself. You'll notice that this coordinate display is available for you immediately. We support over 3,200 different coordinate reference systems. So if you want to actually view a different coordinate system, just select this flyout. And a lot of our customers are international, so they may not necessarily be working with the default settings. So you can go in here and actually select a different projection coordinate system. There were 3,200 different projections or reference systems that we do support. So you can select a specific projection type here. So these are just some of the fundamental capabilities. I can also freeze and unfreeze this coordinate. You notice that that coordinate display is dynamic. If I wanted to freeze that to the middle of this airport, let's say right here in this intersection for these two runways, you notice that the projection's actually frozen. Now I can also right click, and if I didn't have access to any imagery in this product, I could get some sort of reference through just a quick JavaScript to give me a display of Google Maps. Obviously, some of these things will not be as accurate as others, but you will see that now I have a display for that intersection of the runway. So just a nice to have capability. Some of our customers were not able to access external sites, so we did make it available to copy that link to a clipboard or to copy the coordinates directly to the clipboard. You'll notice there are other features and functions here. There's more than one way to skin a cat, if you will. You can also measure lengths from the measurement tool. If I wanted to measure the length of this runway, this again, our users, or the user is not necessarily a geospatially savvy person. So we wanted to give them just some fundamental geospatial principles and tools to be able to interact a little bit better with one of these products. So you'll notice there's the length here. If there are multiple segments, if I obviously can do multiple vertices here as well. I can also measure areas. So if I wanted to measure the whole area of this polygon, and obviously this is crude here, but just to give you an idea of some of the other capabilities. Again, it's just some basic geospatial principles so that the end user can kind of be self-sustaining, and they don't have to continue coming back to the GIS office or the engineering office and ask simple questions that they could actually find themselves or answer themselves. We also interact with GPS, a third-party GPS, if you connect via USB. So I'm actually located in Florida this week. So then this is DC, so it wouldn't show me my actual location. We did talk a good bit about Geopackage and pop-ups. So I wanted to show you the way to interact with that Geopackage. Now I haven't shown you all of the layers, but this identify tool is where we kind of mimic the Esri experience with individual features inside of the end product. You can see how this could be very, very helpful if someone needed to know details about an individual building. And that all comes directly from the attributes there in the Esri enterprise. So trying to just really share as much information as possible and have the user be able to interact with that document. As John said, the Geopackage is located here, and if you have a SQLite browser of sorts, you can interact with that content as well. Again, all of the layers are available, and I can turn those things on and off, turn the imagery on and off. If I don't want to see the building footprints, for example, I can turn those off, or however I want to want to interact with that end product. I did mention that let me turn this imagery back on so we can get a little better feel of what's going on. That TerraGo really focuses on the data sharing from the geospatial enterprise, and also the collaboration, the back and forth. And this is something that is probably not utilized or leveraged as much as it could be. I'm a former Navy intelligence analyst, and we used to deliver product all of the time. And there was imagery and there was some vector content. But whenever we would create a product, unfortunately, we would try to break it down for the lowest common denominator so everyone could view the product, but you couldn't really collaborate on the product. And so what we have here is, I told you there were two different toolbars, the GeoPDF toolbar and the Geomark toolbar. Here is where the user can actually go in and add their own additional content. So if I wanted to digitize some information or add some other information here that may be incorrect or maybe a new observation directly on the product, I can come in here and actually digitize my own new content and create a document or another product that can be implemented back into the GIS enterprise and go directly back to ArcGIS. Here, now you see I have all of these vertices. If I double click on this product, I can also start to add my own attributes to that. So I'll just do just a quick polygon here. I can add other notes. Now there are also attributes that are associated to this, and this is all inside of all information that's pulled directly from the Adobe environment. And I'll show you how to do that real quick to add this other information. That way you have a chain of custody whenever I add additional information and I share it back with someone like John, who is in front of ArcGIS all day. He actually knows where all of that information came from. And we can also add structured forms for data collection. So I have a couple of forms here, just structured data so that it can mirror your data model and come directly seamlessly back into the GIS environment. I can also add attachments. So if I took ground photos or other information, or maybe there's a spreadsheet or another PowerPoint or a Word document, I can actually attach those things as well as add links directly to the document or to that polygon. Here's the geometry. Remember, we're working with a GeoPDF, so each one of those vertices has an X and a Y, and we capture all of that information here. So I'm going to just hit OK. And I can add points, lines, polygons. I'll drop another stamp here real quick and just say this is a telecommunications tower, for example, right here. Kind of hard to see because it's black. We'll put it in an area where it's a little more visible there. And again, attributes can be added to each one of those things as well. So the attributes are pulled directly from here. So that John has this chain of custody if I were to share this back with him. Those attributes, if you look at the preferences in Adobe Reader, if you go to preferences, you have TerraGo preferences and you also have general preferences. Under the general preferences is where my identity is set up. So this is where that information is pulled from, just to give you a good idea here. There are also TerraGo preferences. And you notice everything was in metric units there. So my measure tool options, I could change it back to imperial feet if I wanted to, yards, whatever the case may be. There are a lot of other preferences in here, and I encourage you to go ahead and dive into those as well. For the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to export this information. So under the collaboration part of the Geomark toolbar, I can export those geomarks. And it lets me export them I'm going to save this just to my portable drive here. I can export to KML, to shapefile, or this collaboration file. And that's what John was talking about earlier, being able to import that information back into ArcGIS Desktop. Just for simplicity and the lowest common denominator here, I'm going to call this webinar 16 March. Hit save. It's going to ask me which type of annotation does it want me to export. I'm just going to export those geomarks and hit OK. And go to my portable drive here. So here is that KML file. Now I've actually created new content inside of the GeoPDF, exported it, and you see I have a very small file size to be able to share this information back to either the geospatial person, or I can email a KML to another standard user, or someone else who has another GeoPDF. They can actually open that KML directly inside of the GeoPDF file as well. So this should just run me straight over to Ronald Reagan International Airport. And so here is that tower, and here is the polygon that was generated. So again, you have some attribute information here as well. And then the same with the polygon attribute information there. So an easy way to seamlessly share information back and forth from GeoPDF user to GeoPDF user to GIS analyst, and actually, mitigate a lot of the requests for information that come around, but also be able to collaborate. I mean, we're in the middle of this pandemic, and it looks like we're making a turn on it, but the face-to-face interaction is not necessarily there all the time now. So being able to collaborate spatially and digitally simultaneously in the free Adobe Reader with the free GeoPDF Toolbar. All you have to do is just give that a try for the rest of the month and see if it can help your organization. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close this up. I do have a couple of questions here. Let's see. Can you manage the labels in the PDF document? Manage the labels in the PDF document. So
I answered a few of these questions. As far as managing labels, we do adhere to the label management that's within Esri. So really, when you think about managing the labels, setting up properties for the labels as far as scale dependencies, size, locations, all those things are going to be done within Esri, and we do basically export that, and we do support those properties. Really, the only thing that we would further do or manage within our toolbar would be whether or not we would apply a layer dependency on the label itself. So if I want to turn the labels on and off with the layer itself, that's kind of the only other property that we would utilize. But other than that, we let Esri manage those label properties.
Perfect. There are a couple of other questions, John. I guess we could probably summarize this in an email. The answers to this. So Madison, if you could copy those questions and answers, and we can put them in the summary, the wrap up when we send out the link for the recording. That would be great.
Yeah, the only other one that I was able to answer right off the bat was there was a question about what was included as far as the data in the Geo Package. Was the full extent of the feature, or was it just the visible extent of the PDF itself? And again, so that's going to be just what you're seeing. so if there's 13 bridges in the document, the export, then you're only going to see those 13 bridges in the Geo package. And the other two questions were around an earlier version of our software, which was something that would support ArcMap 10.2.
Yes.
And so we do, the latest version of our software, unfortunately, does not, I don't believe it doesn't support 10.2, but an earlier version does. And I've got a request over to one of our other guys in the office to see if we can make that available for you, Jeff. And then finally, there was a question about a toolbar access in Bluebeam.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure.
So Bluebeam is an application that's used pretty heavily in the AEC market. That GeoPDF Toolbar does not work in Bluebeam at this time. I've heard this request a couple of times now because of the size of the AEC market. It's something that we are looking at, but not something that is currently on the roadmap, April. Okay. I believe that's all of the questions. And Jeff, about version compatibility with 10.2, if I could get you to reach out to me directly, or I will see if I have your contact information. Your name looks very familiar, so I believe I do. And I'll write this down real quick. If you want to reach out to me directly with your organization and help me understand what your timelines look like, we could probably make that older version. It's actually, I was looking up, it's version 7.2 is the version that is compatible with ArcMap 10.2. So we can try to make that available. It's not something we normally do, but if you can get in touch with me directly, we can figure out a way to make that available for you. With that, I'll go ahead and I guess close this up again. Again, my contact information and John's contact information are available here. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out directly to me, and we can make sure we get those answered for you. This will be made available in the coming days on video recording, so you can share with your other colleagues as well. And with that, we'll close it up, Madison. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and look forward to talking to you again in the future.